Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
And during the few moments that we have left, we want to talk right down to earth in a language that everybody here can easily understand.
The cult of personality. I know your anger, I know your dreams. I've been everything you wanna be. Oh, I'm the cult of personality. Like Mussolini and Kennedy. I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality, the cult of personality.
Another special episode of this show. I thought it was important or relevant to go ahead and just do this stream because of things I was uncovering last night while putting together my takes from the news brief. Today is January 4th, 2026. And yeah, I mean, just looking at the news that I'm already seeing from today, I'm glad I'm doing this because there's just no way that we'd be able to do this and everything else on Friday. It's like probably need to do three episodes a week now, right? I mean, there's just so much stuff happening every single day, and I'm still not even covering all the topics that I want to cover. It's pretty crazy. All right, well, thanks again for joining. For those who were watching Breaking History, you know what this is going to be about. We're going to really cover two big topics: the Gustavo Petro meeting with Trump yesterday, and this Credit Suisse story that's evolving, because it all seems to be related to the financial system, the banking system, and it's pretty interesting, the stuff that I'm finding. And I'm still evolving my theory on it. I'm still evolving my understanding of it. So just be a little patient, if you would. Apologize for being late. I was trying to get a download of Gustavo Petro's hour-long press conference, but it's all in Spanish. And just frustrating trying to get the right version of it. Let's see. And then I'm just trying to make sure I have all my tabs open. Such a crazy little rabbit hole. All right, so let's kind of jump right into it. We will go to President Trump's meeting with Gustavo Petro. I don't think they ended up posting anything about this on the White House. I'm blown away that they didn't do a video, like any sort of televised video, because the press was clearly in the room, and yet they didn't do anything with it. That's just strange. They didn't film it. They didn't. I don't understand. But anyway, we'll make do with what we can. Sorry, I'm just stalling because I'm trying to see if they did actually post anything after the fact. No, they didn't. So really the only video we have of Trump talking about this, let's just post that, Trump and Petro, is he made a comment. He was doing a bill signing afterwards. Pull up share my screen. All right, so here's from the White House. There's a picture of him and Petro. Memes. Here is a document from Petro, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this video. He was asked a question. So he was doing a bill signing with a bunch of senators, and to open up the government. And here's the one. He was asked a question by one of the reporters about the Petro meeting, and this is what he said.
Got along very well. He and I weren't exactly the best of friends, but I wasn't insulted because I never met him. I didn't know him at all. And we got along very well, and we're working on that. We're working on some other things too, including sanctions. And we had a very good meeting. I thought he was terrific. We got along very well.
Yeah, so and that's it. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing that you get somebody, a world leader who, and again, like, I don't know what to make of this. Is this happening because the press is intentionally not asking questions about it? I mean, there just seems to be zero interest. Trump literally threatened to arrest this guy a month ago. Like, Trump said he better watch his ass or he might be next. He said that in December. He said it again after he arrested Maduro. It was very strong, like WrestleMania, Trumpmania vibes. And then, of course, the guy shows up at the White House, and the guy is sanctioned. His wife is sanctioned. His kids are sanctioned. No question. Like, nobody asks him any questions. It's open to the press. I mean, there's pictures of the press have taken pictures. They clearly were in the room for some of it, at least. And there's just no questions at all. No interest. It's insane. I mean, it's insane. All the interest seems to be in whether or not we're going to get the government reopened. It's unfathomable. So instead, I think what we'll do is we'll go to, God, man, there's a lot of stuff happening with Turkey too. But so we'll cover Turkey on Friday, I think. Erdogan's making moves, and it's pretty interesting. But instead, we're going to go to Petro's social media account because he's posting stuff about it. And Trump is playing everything really close to the chest, and I probably understand why. I think there's probably a lot of nerves in the banking sector about what this all represents. Unfortunately, everything he's posting is just in English. So here's from France. So like, here's the international press is covering this. This is the really frustrating part. And this is what I run into all the time, like covering geopolitics, is the American press does not cover a damn thing that actually matters when it comes to geopolitics. But then you'll go to the international press, and even like the MSM corporate outlets will cover this stuff. Okay, so here, France 24. Let's see what they posted.
With a friendly handshake and a clap on the back, there appeared to be no hard feelings between the US president and his Colombian counterpart. The leaders from opposite ends of the political spectrum had traded insults for months prior to their meeting.
He and I weren't exactly the best of friends, but I wasn't insulted because I never met him. I didn't know him at all. And we got along very well, and we're working on that. We're working on some other things too, including sanctions.
It was Donald Trump's first sit-down with a head of state from the Americas since he captured former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, an act that President Gustavo Petro fiercely criticized. Top of the agenda was tackling drug trafficking in Colombia. Under Petro's leadership, cocoa production in Colombia has climbed. The two leaders discussed efforts to boost the economy on Colombia's border with Venezuela, aiming to discourage the drugs trade. And Petro said his government is ordering farmers to remove coca plants, replacing them with crops including coffee and coconuts. He also asked Trump for assistance in catching the top-tier criminals involved.
The first line of drug trafficking lives in Dubai, in Madrid, in Miami. It's known by the United States agencies. I gave their names to President Trump. Their ties go beyond themselves.
Last year, the White House slapped sanctions on Petro, accusing him of personal involvement in drugs trafficking, an accusation he vehemently denied. Following the meeting, Trump said the two leaders were working on sanctions, without specifying if he meant those referring to the Colombian leader.
Yeah, so I mean, man, credit to France 24. At least they like covered this, and they put some English overdubs on it. Amazing that, I mean, and they played the same clip that I played, and they actually overdubbed it that I played on Breaking History. It's just amazing that, I guess it's not that amazing. I guess like the bank the same bankers that Gustavo Petro and Trump, I think, are about to go after. They own all the media, right? There's a reason why the media doesn't cover this stuff, and that's also why Americans are, as a skeptical saying in the chat. That's also why Americans are so woefully ignorant. They just don't know like what they're talking about, and it's because like people are consumed with the shiny objects. Is the government going to be open? Who gives a shit? I mean, who cares? Is the government open? Is it not open? I mean, I wish the government would close down because they're just wasting all of our money anyway. But it's like, I just feel like these are just such worthless pursuits. Is the banking system about to be pursued by cartel, like anti-cartel law enforcement operations? That is way juicier than anything else, I think. So that's what we're going to talk about. And for those who are joining us who did not watch Breaking History, you're probably a little apologies for the jarring jarring aspects of this. I was trying to get the transcript from this guy's interview press conference declassified. So they do the meeting. Gustavo Petro does a declassification. I had a lot of fun like putting the news brief together because I was just kind of being goofy with, the presents they exchange and stuff. We'll look at that in a second. But he goes and he does like a 1 hour press conference afterwards, and it's all in Spanish. It's obviously directed at his people, the Colombian people, and he's talking about all the stuff they talked about in the meeting. And there's just no reporting on this at all in the American press, none. So here's like, we're pretty much beholden to Gustavo Petro and what he is reposting to his X account. I can't play the clip because I think it's all in Spanish. Yeah, so I'm just going to read what it says. It says, President Gustavo Petro confirmed that during his meeting with President Trump, he handed him a letter in which he insists on the need to declassify the secret files that the United States holds regarding the takeover and retaking of the Palace of Justice in 1985, regarding the events of April 9th, 1948 in Bogota. This is what he said. And it's all I can really do is just ask Grok to like translate this because I can't quite get. Well, you know what? Actually, let me see if I think I did actually get it translated over here. Here, I'm going to play this. There's another outlet, DW. I don't know if this is Daily Wire or what, but who this is. But here's another outlet that's covering it. So I'll play this while I get the YouTube transcript video ready.
President Gustavo Petro has met with Donald Trump at the White House in an attempt to diffuse months of tensions. Petro said they discussed exporting Venezuelan gas through Colombia, anti-drug cooperation, and strains with Ecuador. Both leaders hailed the meeting as very positive. And this shift in tone comes just weeks after Trump threatened Colombia with military action, accusing Petro of pumping cocaine into the U.S. And Petro, for his part, has criticized the capture of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro by American forces. Now, the Colombian president later gave more details about his meeting with the U.S. president during a press conference at the Colombian embassy. Here's some of what he had to say.
We may be very different in terms of our historic and societal backgrounds, but what brings us together is freedom. And that is where our conversation began. We can make a pact for freedom. We can make a pact for life. Life and freedom go hand in hand today. And we can come together on these two issues. That's why we looked at how to revive Venezuela. Not simply by lamenting what happened there, which is serious, but rather how Venezuela can be revived with the help of Colombia, its neighbor. What will the role of the United States be there? For example, should it lift sanctions?
DW correspondent Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber in Washington, D.C. was at that press conference with the Colombian president. And I asked him if anything concrete came out of Gustavo Petro's meeting with Trump.
And it's not just the Colombian president who sounds quite positive, even from President Trump. And it's so remarkable to listen to the US president now referring to his Colombian counterpart as, quote, terrific, when only recently he called Petro a sick man. He accused him without offering any evidence of being an illegal drug leader. And on the other side, seeing Petro, who's a vocal critic of the US president today, coming out of the White House with a red MAGA hat, praising this conversation. Petro even posted a picture of this hat showing that he added an S to America, changing the meaning to making the Americas as a continent great again, in reference to Trump's main campaign slogan. But apart from this, you could say maybe surprising turn in this relationship, there are not so many details on the topics that they discussed during this lengthy meeting in the White House. We only know that there might be a possible involvement by Washington in mediating between Colombia and Ecuador, but there are many questions that still remain, especially on what they spoke about, one of Colombia's neighbors, Venezuela, and the new relationship between Caracas and Washington.
You mentioned there being not much detail that we know, but also the meeting was rather low key compared to others by when other foreign leaders have visited. Do we know why this was this way?
So there was some speculation that this trading of insults between both leaders could lead to a repeat of this kind of a shouting match altercation that unfolded in the Oval Office between Trump and the Ukrainian president Zelensky. So not opening the meeting to the press might have actually helped here. That he used the side entrance was due to the fact that this meeting was classified as a simple visit, so not the usual reception reserved for heads of states on official visits. But this deteriorating relationship between both countries that has been ongoing for a while made many believe if this meeting would actually take place. And also what was quite interesting in this press conference that we attended and that you mentioned there was that Petro actually did not went ahead with this announcement that he made to pause intelligence sharing with the United States. So there might be some additional steps to the normalization between both countries on that front too.
DW's Benjamin Alvarez Gruber, thank you for that update.
So that guy kind of confirms what, so this is Deutsche Welle is the outlet. It's not Daily Wire. That guy kind of confirms exactly what I was thinking. They made him use the side entrance. They downplayed this. This was not something that was highly publicized. And a big reason for that, I think, is because there are a lot of people in Washington who don't like this guy. A lot of Republicans who don't like this guy. The Republicans were standing on the table screaming to go arrest him and to invade Colombia. And to that point, let me share this screen. One of these guys was actually invited to the meeting. So here we have this one person highlights this. I was trying to figure out when I was watching this yesterday who this guy was. This is Bernie Moreno, who's a U.S. senator, whom Petro has been publicly branding as his like public enemy for months. Right here, it says Donald Trump deliberately invited Bernie Moreno, the U.S. senator whom Petro has been publicly branding as his personal enemy for months, to the bilateral meeting at the White House. The very same Bernie Moreno whom Petro openly accused of, quote, leading a personal vendetta, wanting to investigate and sanction him, using AI-generated images to plant an abusive narrative against him. Today, the same Bernie Moreno sat face-to-face with Gustavo Petro in the Oval Office, not because Petro wanted it, but because Trump decided so. Diplomacy has hierarchies, and Trump has reminded everybody what they are. Yeah, my guess is that was more of a humiliation ritual for Bernie Moreno, who I don't really know anything about, but I bet you if I go look up, let's just go look up what Bernie Moreno's posted about this, there's probably nothing. But it's interesting because Gustavo Petro has been very clear that the guy who was in office before him, who was out of office in 2022, clearly was a neocon Zionist puppet, and was according to Petro, was planning on using the office or using Colombia as a staging ground to invade Venezuela and start a civil war like against the Maduro government. Very much like Turkey was used as a staging ground to bring weapons into Syria and start a civil war against Assad. I think it's literally the exact same model. So let me go look at Bernie Moreno. Now, the reason I want to look at this one quote that I just showed you before about the palace takeover is because I was looking into this last night. And okay, so here's Bernie Moreno. He says, I was honored to join President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio in the Oval Office today. President Trump pledged to be a peacemaker and a unifier when he took over just 1 year ago. He has delivered and continued to deliver on that promise. He welcomed President Petro to the White House and made it clear that the United States is committed to peace and stability in the Western Hemisphere. He also made it clear that he will engage in meaningful and respectful dialogue with anyone who seeks to work with in partnership with the U.S. to advance our mutual interests. Wiping out the scourge of drug trafficking is at the top of that agenda, as it should be for all free nations. Much work needs to be done, but today was a step in a positive direction with his remarkable and successful precision operation in Venezuela. President Trump has opened an era of unlimited opportunities for not only the U.S., but also for Latin America. Colombia has been and can be again our great ally and strategic partner. We look forward to engaging with the Petro administration over their last few months in office. It's essential that Colombia ensure its people has a transparent, free, and fair election, not only next month, but in May and June. The U.S. will be watching carefully, and I'm hopeful that the next president of Colombia will build upon what we have done and take the relationship to new heights. So what he's basically saying here is we're going to replace this guy in this next election. And that was something that Petro was posting about yesterday and the day before yesterday, is him talking to Trump about external influence, external manipulation of their election this year. Because the way Bernie Moreno is not talking about it as if Petro is going to stay in office. He's talking about it like as if when we get this next guy in here, I hope they're going to work with us. Yeah, I mean, the Republicans are eager to get their Zionist puppet, their Maria Corina Machado, into whoever that may be, into office in Colombia. And I think a big part of that is they need to restore the drug trade, which Gustavo Petro has absolutely decimated. We covered yesterday on the show. We went through some of his posts, and he was talking about how he had just arrested, or the number 2 guy, I think he said, in the Gulf Clan cartel, which is the largest cocaine cartel, had just drowned, and he basically sent the special forces to recover the body. Don't really know what that means, right? Don't know what that means at all. But okay, so if I come over here to the transcript. So I have the transcript right here of this guy's press conference, which again, very frustrating. If anyone knows how to get the transcripts easily downloaded, I used to have a program that would do it, but the program won't download it for some reason. And I'm having issues with that. I'm going to throw it in the chat. And if anyone has a way of downloading a YouTube video transcript, please help me out and throw it back in there. I'm just trying to get a hard copy so I can get the transcript and like read through what he was saying. Because right now I'm basically just dependent on clips that are being posted, and a lot of the clips aren't even direct quotes. It's like summaries of what the guy's saying. But I really want to find this palace. Okay, let me just, maybe an easier way to do it is because what it sounds like what he's talking about is the CIA taking over the palace, taking over the Colombian government in the 80s, and basically forming a relationship between the drug cartels and the government. That's what it sounds like he's accusing them of. And let me pull that one back up. Computer's beeping because it doesn't like me doing all this. Yeah, and at some point we're just gonna have to move on from this, but I'm really interested in what was discussed. So here he is. 3 hours ago, he posts, there's no need to get nervous just because the price formation structure of the supplier is known with transparency on the part of the consumer. A price in general is the average cost of producing in a productive branch plus its average rate of profit. Those who have lower costs can earn more for a while, and those who have higher costs can disappear under free competition if they don't get their act together. From the profit come the financial costs, and the cost of production is the value of inputs and energy. In agricultural production, the rate of profit also covers the payment of land rent. When we imposed more taxes on bank owners, dividend owners, large landowners, and made the electricity generation oligopoly pay taxes. What we sought was to reduce the rents that are extracted from profit and leave production and even the country altogether. And instead of discouraging, to encourage most of the profit to be reinvested precisely by placing taxes on dividends. The majority of the Constitutional Court did not understand this at all. Journalist Azosco also asks whether there was a huge business lobby, surely from bank owners, since most of the magistrates do not understand how capital valorizes itself through production. What they did following Ibanez and Camargo was to deliver a massive blow to national capitalism. They stimulated the large unproductive rents that paralyzed capital and discouraged productive capital. The owners of industry and agriculture would have benefited greatly from the tax reform. Above all, it would have benefited small and medium-sized industry because their taxes would have been reduced. We will have to elect a truly new Congress so that Colombia can continue to change. And he's quoting or quote posting something that says, breaking the government is requesting information from business owners about the parameters that they use in their companies to set prices and discounts. It is asking about the criteria used to establish the profit margin and what way they incorporate the evolution of the exchange rate in determining prices. The situation is causing extreme nervousness in the country's business sector. And so, like, I'm just reading this in real time to y'all, and then we'll get to the research that I had. We'll just have to skip out on this. I was hoping to kind of run through this transcript, but maybe we'll try to do that on Friday if I can get this thing downloaded. What they're basically doing is they're trying to brand this guy as a communist, socialist, and he has like a background in that. Like, he was like a revolutionary, a Marxist revolutionary when he was younger. But my understanding, having like looked into this part of the world and understand what happened in Venezuela, having spoken to Cynthia Chung and Matt Arrett about the role that the Green Berets played in overthrowing a lot of these governments through Operation Condor, which is the South American version of Operation Gladio, and then understanding how the corporatists have come in and basically just revised, like re-evolved reintroduced colonialism from a corporatist standpoint. It makes a lot of sense that they would be very, very vigilant and very, very hostile towards these large corporations and banks coming in and profiting off agriculture. So it sounds like what Gustavo Petro is saying here is that these large banks and corporations, which are probably foreign, I would imagine, are coming in and buying up farmland and then extracting the profits from the agriculture, and instead of reinvesting the profits back into the farms so they can grow, they're just taking the profits as dividends and walking away. They're extracting the wealth from Colombia, just like these criminals were extracting the wealth from PDVSA, right? So let's just go ahead and kind of pivot over to that, because I think that is, well, before we get there, I think we'll just do the whole Colombia thing. So we'll cover, I mean, for those of you who watch Breaking History, there's going to be a little bit of redundancy here. Matt was really interested in this, so that's why I was just going to cover this whole thing on this show, but Matt really wanted to get into it on Breaking History, so I spoke about it. And the origin of this is the Treasury Department. So sanction against Petro that was issued by the Treasury from, I believe it was December, or October rather, excuse me. Right here, it says Treasury sanctions Colombian President Gustavo Petro and his support network. Executive Order 14059, which targets foreign persons involved in the global illicit drug trade. And again, the reason I think Trump's doing this is he's doing this as a feign to the people around him who view Petro as a threat, because I do think Trump is surrounded by enemies who basically have put themselves in the room, and Trump has allowed them to come in the room, because rather than fight them, he's like, all right, keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. Come on in, guys, right? And they think, okay, well, I'm sitting here in the room. I have a seat at the table. That means I can control the outcome. We've heard Mark Carney and Netanyahu make that argument. that the reason Mark Carney and Netanyahu want to join the board of peace is because they can control the outcome if they're sitting at the head of the table. That's their opinion on it, right? It's the same thing with these lobbyists and globalists and corporatists. If they can be in the room with Trump and work with him, right, and buddy up with him, they think, because they kind of think Trump's a fool, that they can pull the wool over his eyes and control outcomes. And that's probably, from Trump's standpoint and the White House standpoint, a better relationship and a better dynamic than them being in hostility, right? And them operating on the outside as a combatant trying to bring Trump down, which is going to happen. I mean, they're definitely doing that, but they're going to be less aggressive with those operations if they think they have one foot in the door, and they're like, well, if we have one hand on the steering wheel, maybe we can steer this thing away from a true populist revolution. Okay, so getting back to this, it names Gustavo Petro, it names his eldest son, it names his wife, it names Armando Alberto Beniti Villaneda, I think. Yeah, who apparently, I guess, is involved in like his campaign and his government. The sanctions implications as a result of today's actions, all property and interest and property of the designated or blocked persons described above that are in the United States or in the possession or control of the U.S. persons are blocked and must be reported to OFAC, which is the Office of Foreign Asset Control. In addition, to any entities that are owned directly or indirectly, individually or in the aggregate, 50% or more by one or more blocked persons are also blocked unless authorized by a general or specific license issued by OFAC. And the thing that really brought my attention to what I'm going to show next was this paragraph. So the second paragraph, like, let's just read the whole thing on Gustavo Petro. It says, Colombia remains the world's top producer and exporter of cocaine. Cocaine from Colombia is often purchased by Mexican cartels who then smuggle it into the United States via the southern border. So there you go. Mexican cartels are kind of running the whole thing, right? It is a scheduled substance that is a significant drug threat to the United States, despite Gustavo Petro's recent flippant comparison of the use of the drug to whiskey. Gustavo Petro is a former guerrilla member who was elected to the Colombian presidency in 2022. He has provided narco-terrorist organizations with benefits under the auspices of his Total Peace Plan, among other policies, which have led to record highs of coca cultivation and cocaine production. On September 15, 2025, because of Gustavo Petro and his cronies' actions, the president determined Colombia as a major drug transit or major illicit drug producing country, and that is failing demonstrably to uphold its drug control responsibilities. Gustavo Petro's erratic behavior has also driven Colombia further apart from its partners in additional ways. In 2024, he shared confidential information obtained via secure anti-money laundering communication channels, threatening the integrity of the international financial system and leading to the suspension of Colombia's financial intelligence unit from the Egmont Group. He has also allied himself with the narco-terrorist regime of Nicolas Maduro and the cartel de los Soles. So that last sentence does not make any sense. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. So this guy is the head of a cocaine cartel, allegedly, right? He's the president of a third world country, right? I mean, Colombia, I think, straddles whatever the third world, second world designation, whatever designation you want to use for Colombia. It's not considered like one of the first world countries, right? And primarily because of its illicit black market activities, cocaine and that drug trade being a big destabilizing factor in their history. How is it that this guy could share confidential information that he obtained that would threaten the integrity of the entire international financial system? I need somebody to explain it to me like I'm an idiot. Like somebody who thinks that Gustavo Petro is the bad guy and Nicolas Maduro is the bad guy and the Republicans are the good guys. Explain to me how the head of a cocaine cartel could share confidential information, banking information that was obtained through official channels, anti-money laundering channels. And that information threatens the integrity of the entire international financial system, to the extent that Colombia is now suspended from the Egmont Group, which apparently is a group I'm going to explain in a minute. It doesn't make any sense. it's actually insulting to our intelligence that they're presenting this. And I'm willing to be patient with the fact that our intelligence is being insulted by our government, by Trump, because I think he is actually running this op against the people standing directly next to him in a lot of cases. But this doesn't make any logical sense that the head of a cocaine cartel has financial information that could bring down the whole international system. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It's stupid. It's not a thing. So the Egmont Group is something that I didn't know about. Matt Ehret didn't know about. None of us knew about this until I discovered it last night. And it is, as I explained, I have a better little summary right here. So I asked ChatGPT, what is the Egmont Group? It says the Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units is an international framework of financial intelligence units that cooperate to combat money laundering, terrorist financing, and other serious financial crimes. It was founded in 1995. It currently includes 170 plus members, FIUs, financial intelligence units from around the world. It's named after the Egmont Palace in Brussels, where the group first met. The Egmont, Brussels, by the way, is the home of the EU. That's like where a lot of these like globalist structures, infrastructures are all based out of. The Egmont Group provides a secure and trusted framework for cooperation among the national FIUs by facilitating information exchange, meaning members share financial intelligence related to suspicious transactions and criminal activity, providing secure technology. It operates the Egmont Secure Web, the ESW, a protected communication platform for FIUs. So I think when they say that Petro obtained information through secure channels, that's what they're talking about. He got information off the Egmont Secure Web, which is like a encrypted communication network that these financial intelligence units use to communicate with one another around the world. Supporting capacity building, training best practices, and technical assistance for developing and strengthening FIUs, and setting operational standards, promotes common principles for FIU independence, confidentiality, and effectiveness. Okay, so let me just pivot now to the actual ChatGPT conversation that I was having. All right, so I asked it about what it was. It explains it. It says, what is it not? Okay, so what is it not? All right, I'm gonna reshare my my browser because it says that I've lost audio, and at some point I'm gonna try to play a video and it's not gonna play. So I need to reshare. It's just StreamYard being StreamYard. Okay, hopefully it'll work now. All right, so it says, what is it not? It is not a law enforcement agency. It is not, it does not investigate or prosecute crimes. It does not make laws or sanctions. Instead, it acts as a coordination and intelligence sharing body. Why it matters. Financial crimes are often cross-border, involving complex networks and shell transactions. The Egmont Group helps countries detect illicit financial flows, trace terrorist financing, recover criminal proceeds, strengthen global financial integrity. It plays a key role in the global anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing system, alongside organizations like the FATF, which is the Financial Action Task Force. So, maybe I'll just go ahead and ask it this question. Did the Egmont Group play any role in determining the, and maybe the answer will be yes. I don't know. Maybe I'll be shocked. And determining the money laundering scheme that PDVSA finds itself at the center. The short answer, no. The Egmont Group did not determine, investigate, or adjudicate the PDVSA money laundering scandal, but it did play an indirect enabling role by facilitating financial intelligence sharing that helped national authorities uncover and pursue the scheme. The core distinction being The Egmont Financial Group of Financial Intelligence Units only investigates, or wait, it only does is an intelligence sharing network only. Investigations, indictments, and asset seizures are done by national prosecutors and law enforcement agencies. Egmont does not determine guilt, name schemes, or publish findings. Yeah, no shit. Okay, so Egmont's actual role, indirect but important. FIUs exchange intelligence via Egmont channels. Okay, so can you show me? So show me specifically where Egmont aided authorities in finding determining the culpability of Credit Suisse and other banks that are involved in this massive money laundering scheme. Because I've read through all of these DOJ documents, and I've never once heard Egmont Group mentioned. I've never once heard the FIUs mentioned. I've never once heard any of this stuff mentioned. Since I can't show you a document finding or public record where the Egmont Group itself aided authorities, well, that seems really convenient. Bottom line, there is no public, judicial, or regulatory source that attributes the determination of culpability of Credit Suisse or any other bank in PDVSA-related cases to the Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units. Okay, so what the hell is the point of this group then? Because this just seems like, basically, it's like it's an intelligence unit that operates transnationally that works for the bad guys, right? I mean, it's like basically helping the bad guys figure out like what the good guys are doing. And I mean, there's no oversight. There's no. Tell me about the oversight. The oversight of Egmont by U.S. authorities. Let's just use the U.S. as an example. In short, U.S. authorities do not oversee the Egmont Group. They participate in it, influence it indirectly, and are themselves subject to constraints imposed by Egmont rules. Below is the precise governance reality because the topic is often misunderstood. And then, ChatGPT is going to try to explain to me how this is like totally like legitimate. So the following do not oversee Egmont: the Justice Department, the U.S. Treasury, FBI, Congress, or any U.S. court or regulator. So is the Egmont Group a private organization? No, the Egmont Group is not a private organization, but it is also not a public agency in the usual sense. It sits in a distinct middle category. The Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units is a multilateral intergovernment-style network made up of exclusively of government financial intelligence units. Members are state bodies, not companies or individuals. Participation is government to government. Decisions are made by heads of national FIUs. It operates under public law mandates of its members. Who funds it? I mean, that's the next logical question. The Egmont Group is funded by its member financial intelligence units, that is by governments, not by private actors. And the host country is, of course, Canada. And that's what I learned and kind of blew Matt's mind, that this is all based in Canada. So let's go back to their website and we'll just kind of walk you through it. So here's the website, right? Here's the organization and the structure. You have like this hierarchy that's laid out that the heads of financial, and this hierarchy, by the way, is very misleading because the way that they draw this stupid little pyramid is they make it seem like the heads of financial intelligence units are the ones in charge. It says the heads of the HOFIU are the Egmont Group's governing body. They make consensus-driven decisions on matters affecting membership structure, budget, and key principles. They communicate regularly through the Egmont Secure Web and meet at least once a year during the annual Egmont Group plenary meeting. All right, then you have the Egmont Committee, which is the consultation and coordination mechanism for the HO, FIU, and the working groups. The EC's primary functions include assisting the Egmont Group in various activities, from internal coordination and administration to representation at international fora. The EC also oversees the work of the Egmont Group Secretariat. The Egmont Committee is comprised of both working group and regional members. Then it goes on to list the chair of the Egmont Group, who also serves as the chair of the Egmont Committee. It's comprised of that chair, the two Egmont Group vice chairs, the working group chairs, the regional groups representatives from all the different regions that's listed there, the Egmont Secure Web representative, and the executive secretary of the Egmont Group. So then it goes on to explain the regional groups assist the Egmont Group with accomplishing its goal of development, cooperation, and sharing of expertise at the regional level. Each regional group is represented by regional representatives on the Egmont Committee. Each member FIU is a regional group member. Then the working groups, Egmont Group has 4 unique working groups, each with its own mandate aimed at supporting member FIUs. The Egmont working groups are led by a chair and vice chairs. So the 4 groups are the Information Exchange Working Group, the Membership Support and Compliance Working Group, the Policy and Procedures Working Group, and the Technical Assistance and Training Working Group. Then it goes on to explain the Egmont Group Secretariat. The Egmont Group Secretariat provides strategic, technical, and administrative support to the heads of the FIU, the EC, and the working groups and the regional groups. Functioning based on the Egmont Group Charter, the EGS is also assists with content management on the open communities within the Egmont Secure Web. The EGS is headed by the executive secretary and reports directly to the chair of the Egmont Group. The Egmont Group Secretariat was established in July 2007 and is based in Canada. Mr. Jerome Beaumont is the current executive secretary of the Egmont Group. And so my understanding is that basically this organization was formed in 1995 in Brussels. They first met in Brussels. But at that point, it was just kind of this nebulous group that didn't really quite have a formal mandate. It didn't really have like a formal purpose, right? It was just kind of like, all right, we're all these financial intelligence units and we're going to be sharing information with one another, et cetera, right? It wasn't until 2007 when they created this group secretariat, which is basically like the president of my understanding is it's like the president of their organization. He's the chief executive, basically the chief executive, and that's based in Toronto. They built the headquarters there, and now that's what gave the whole thing formality. That's what gave the whole thing kind of legitimacy, right? It's like it goes from being kind of this nebulous idea to this brick and mortar agency that's actually operating and doing whatever it is they claim to do. Then it goes on to say the Egmont Center of FIU Excellence in Leadership. So then this is, it's created as an engine and a hub to further assist FIUs as they strive towards excellence in leadership. Its goal is to protect, position, and promote FIUs within their national systems as well as internationally. So basically, they're trying to make sure the FIUs have as much power as that's the financial intelligence units have as much power as possible within their specific government, right? It aims to share expertise and practice among FIUs, build networks within the community, introduce new and innovative tools for FIU operations and development, strengthen cooperation in international partner organizations, empower FIUs to position themselves domestically and internationally as leaders, and activities will include mentoring, coaching, staff exchanges, specialized training courses, a reference library, e-learning platform development, and other support mechanisms. This Center of Excellence in Leadership has been active since April 2018 and is fully integrated in the Egmont Group, located within the Egmont Group Secretariat in Canada. So let's go back to the ChatGPT, because I asked it specifically, why is this thing located in Toronto? It says the headquarters secretariat of the Egmont Group of Financial Intelligence Units is in Toronto for a combination of historical, operational, and politically neutral reasons rather than symbolism. Canada offered a neutral, trusted host. Canada is widely viewed as politically neutral in global financial intelligence cooperation. It is not perceived as dominant in international law enforcement, which helped reassure smaller and developing jurisdictions. This neutrality was critical for an organization built on voluntary intelligence sharing and trust. Its proximity to FinTrack, the host FIU. The secretariat is hosted by Canada's FIU, Financial Transactions and Reports Analysis Center of Canada. FinTrack committed office space, IT infrastructure, and administrative support, locating the secretariat nearby, simplified daily coordination and security. FinTrack itself is headquartered in Ottawa, but the Egmont Secretariat operates from Toronto due to available secure facilities and staffing arrangements. Canadian law provides robust safeguards for classified and sensitive financial intelligence, data protection, and privacy. So Canadian law makes it uniquely positioned to host this thing. This reassured member FIUs that shared intelligence would not be misused. Host country authorities could not freely access Egmont data. Operational and logistic advantages. Toronto offers excellent international connectivity. Why? Large multilingual workforce, a time zone overlap with Europe and the Americas, and these factors support 24/7 coordination across the 170 plus countries that participate in this. Consensus-based selection. The location was chosen by member consensus, not imposed. Hosting is viewed as a service role, not a position of control. Canada's offer was seen as low risk and non-controversial. Yeah, because Canada is just very polite, right? Okay, so the last thing I kind of want to ask it is provide an example of a case where the Egmont Group played a critical role in identifying a criminal network, right? That was engaged in illegal activity. It's going to tell me it's probably classified, I bet. Okay, so a clear, well-documented example of the Egmont Group playing a critical enabling role would be the International FIFA Cooperation or Corruption and Bribery Network, uncovered in the 2010s. This case is frequently cited in the Egmont Training Manual, FIU briefings, and AML typology discussions. Oh, wow. FIFA. Okay, and then it gives you a nice little chart of what money laundering is. And so they were critical because they had early detection through multiple FIUs. That's it. Professional soccer. Professional soccer is what you caught. Yeah. How about a human trafficking network? Has it ever uncovered a human trafficking network? Okay, so a transnational sex trafficking network between Europe and Latin America. Doesn't provide any citation. It just says that it happened. Okay. What? It literally doesn't even give you any specifics. It just says this seems really, really stupid. So there's no like hard evidence. God, this is so dumb. I feel like I'm wasting my time talking about this, but this group apparently, like I specifically asked it. The reason I wanted to show you this is I specifically asked it, how does this group interface with the DOJ and FBI? And it says the Egmont Group Financial Intelligence Units does not interface directly with the DOJ or FBI as institutions. Instead, interaction happens indirectly in a tightly controlled way through the U.S. Financial Intelligence Unit. And it says the U.S. FIU is Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, part of the U.S. Treasury. FinCEN is the only U.S. member of the Egmont Group. All Egmont-related information enters and leaves the U.S. exclusively through FinCEN. How information flows. The foreign FIU then interfaces with FinCEN foreign FIU shares financial intelligence via the Egmont secure web. The data is intelligence, not courtroom evidence. FinCEN analysis and controls. FinCEN reviews the request or intelligence for purpose, limitation, confidentiality requirements, legal authority under U.S. law. FinCEN may enrich it with U.S. financial data. FinCEN then interfaces with DOJ or FBI. If legally appropriate, FinCEN disseminates intelligence to the DOJ and FBI. This occurs under U.S. statutes and memorandums of understanding, not Egmont authority. It says what DOJ and FBI can and cannot do. They can receive Egmont-derived intelligence only through FinCEN. They can use it to open or support investigations, generate leads, seek subpoenas, warrants, or MLAT requests, and build cases with independently obtained evidence. What they can't do, they can't access the Egmont secure web directly. They can't contact the foreign FIUs through Egmont channels, and they can't use Egmont intelligence as trial evidence without conversion. And basically, it's like, yeah, but the U.S. Treasury can do all those things. That's the point. Here's a practical example. A European FIU identifies suspicious wire transfers involving a U.S. shell company. The FIU sends intelligence to FinCEN via Egmont. FinCEN analyzes and shares leads with the FBI. The FBI develops independent evidence, subpoenas, and warrants. The DOJ prosecutes using lawfully obtained evidence, not Egmont data. The bottom line is, let me see. So the bottom line is that they do give data, they do give financial information to FBI and DOJ, but it has to go through the U.S. Treasury. So last thing I'm going to ask it is, did Egmont play any role in Operation Money Flight? No, the Egmont Group did not play any operational or determining role in Operation Money Flight. Any connection is indirect, upstream, or limited to routine FIU intelligence sharing, not investigation or enforcement. Okay, so what does that mean? No, I'm not talking about the Chinese. I'm not talking about the Chinese one. I'm talking about the Venezuelan one. Yeah, this is stupid. I mean, look, maybe this network is used as a secure channel for them to share information, but I'm not seeing that. Let me pull up the FIU. I want to pull up the Operation Money Flight, DOJ, Operation Money Flight disclosure. And let's see if FinCEN is. Operation Money Flight. So the DOJ suspends the DEA's controversial asset seizure program. This is no, that's not the right one. DOJ suspends DEA's controversial asset forfeiture program in airports. This was during the Biden administration. This is December 23rd, 2024. So right before Biden leaves office, right? It means that air travelers across the United States, basically they're I remember reading about this. They were accusing them of stealing cash from people, which again doesn't make any sense, but it could be true. Is this Besant talking about this?
Thank you. New at 6 here tonight as a law.
I mean, wouldn't that be
her husband? A criminal activity. They can take your money, even if you don't end up being charged with a crime.
That's right. It's a controversial practice known as civil forfeiture. And critics tell I-Team investigator Kylie McGivern, despite changes made to Florida law, more needs to be done so personal property is not padding the pockets of law enforcement.
The Institute for Justice is firing off lawsuits here in Florida and across the country in a bid to stop police from seizing innocent people's property. In tonight's special Full Circle report, we tell you where the money is going, why agencies defend the program, and the push to eliminate policing for profit.
Gambling is kind of what we do.
Stacey Jones lives in Tampa, but flies often with her husband.
We've traveled back and forth to Vegas.
The lights, the sounds, a long-time way of life for Jones.
I was in the casino business for 20 years. Never thought twice about traveling with cash.
Not until earlier this year, when she was stopped in a North Carolina airport, a gambling trip with friends cut short after a close family member passed away. In her bag, Jones had her gambling money plus cash from her friends to buy her 2015 Maserati Ghibli back in Tampa. So how much money were you traveling with?
About $43,000.
There is no limit to the amount of cash a passenger can carry on a flight within the U.S. But going through security, Jones says a TSA agent held her bag.
And she said, "Where did this come from?"
Before turning it over to a local law enforcement officer.
He then called the gentleman who bought the car to confirm. He came back and told us our story wasn't adding up. And then he called in some DEA agents.
Were you charged with anything?
No, no charges, no evidence, no nothing. It was just seized.
Jones flew back to Tampa the same day without her money. A couple of months later, she received this notice from the Drug Enforcement Administration telling her what to do to try to get her money back. That's when Jones joined the Institute for Justice's federal class action lawsuit with people like Rebecca Brown, who tried to fly with her father's life savings of $82,000 to deposit it into a bank account like he wanted.
My father and his father before him worked very hard for this money, and I'm merely taking it from one state to another.
The suit filed against TSA, the DEA, and the United States of America, saying every year DEA conducts hundreds or even thousands of seizures of cash from travelers. None of the federal agencies would comment on the lawsuit.
It just seems like it's almost like pirates of the airport.
Civil forfeitures don't just happen at airports.
Hey, what's all this? What's all this money?
The I-Team was able to get an early look at the Institute for Justice's latest Policing for Profit report, a collection of state and federal forfeiture data. It reveals Florida took in more through forfeitures than any other state in 2018. For years, Institute for Justice attorney Justin Pearson has been working to change Florida laws.
No one should lose their money or property without being convicted of a crime. And the Florida legislature tried to fix that, but the Florida police have found a way around those reforms.
Let's pause here. Back in 2016, the Florida legislature unanimously passed a bill requiring law enforcement to make an arrest before seizing most property. The new law also increased the standard of evidence to proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, back to Pearson's argument about law enforcement.
And they should not be profiting from circumventing Florida law.
The Institute for Justice calls the federal equitable sharing program a loophole because it allows state and local law enforcement to partner with the feds on civil forfeitures and keep a portion of the profits. Why does that matter? For one, under federal law, a person does not have to be charged for their property to be seized.
To fix the problem, all the Florida legislature has to do is close the equitable sharing loophole.
Some states have done that by removing the incentive for local law enforcement to directly benefit from what they seize. Instead, the profit is put into the general fund, not police coffers.
Some of the poster children for bad actors are some of the cities in the state of Florida.
Republican State Senator Jeff Brandis of St. Pete
How much is being federally forfeited versus
was behind the 2016 bill that changed civil forfeiture rules. What are your thoughts on this idea that equitable sharing is a loophole?
It absolutely is a loophole.
One he plans to address this upcoming session.
Look, we want to support our law enforcement, but we also don't want to put out some incentive out there for them to do civil asset forfeiture. We should ensure that they have to follow the state law before they can jump to the federal law.
State law also requires agencies donate at least 25% of forfeiture.
I think we've kind of covered that. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like a weird thing where this civil asset forfeiture law that I think Trump was using was being taken to an extreme. And I found a case where it looks like some flight attendants were arrested for taking thousands of dollars to Dominican Republic. But I want to pivot to this. This is what I was looking for, was the archives from the DOJ. 2 members of billion-dollar Venezuelan money laundering scheme arrested. So we looked at this before a few weeks ago. This is the arrest, public affair or public statement put up by the DOJ when Matthias Krull was arrested January 25th, 2018 in Miami. Okay, and so when I search the document for FinCEN, it doesn't come up. I then pulled up this is the actual indictment. This is the actual indictment for Matthias Krull. And well, this is the indictment for Francisco Convite Gori. Say here's the one from Krull. So this one's for Krull. Okay. It's dated August 22nd, 2000. The printout here is dated August 22nd, 2018, which I believe is the date of his plea agreement. So yeah, you can see the plea agreement. Let's see if FinCEN does not come up there. But what I'm looking for is the actual complaint. Because it appears that here's the actual complaint. It's this document that says Francisco Convite. So if I look up for Matthias, that's weird that it doesn't have Matthias Krull listed. Yeah, it talks about conspiracy to commit money laundering, Miami-Dade, but why is it Francisco Convite? That's very strange. Very, very, very strange. And the warrant is signed July 23rd, 2018, 2 days before he was arrested. Okay. So there's Krull. Okay. Krull comes up, a German national and Panamanian resident. Krull was a high-level banker at a large Swiss bank specializing in Venezuelan clients. Krull is the personal banker of Conspirator 7 and others. And so they have people in here that they're not naming, that are just named as like conspirators because I assume this is an ongoing investigation, right? Krull manages banking activities for numerous Venezuelan officials and kleptocrats. So having read, I've like breezed through this a little bit, but FinCEN, let's look up where FinCEN was only mentioned 2 times in this entire thing. And this thing is, how many pages is it? It's 33 pages. So it's pretty detailed. FinCEN's only listed 2 times. And the first time it is listed is in reference to this guy, Urdaneta, who later sent, it says Urdaneta later sent the CS an image of May 10, 2016 email from the developer of the Porsche Design Tower in Miami, informing him of an upcoming closing on the unit. The email included pre-closing questionnaire provided by the developer, contains the following warning, quote, note, taking title under a company or trust may trigger FinCEN reporting requirements. And a follow-up chat with the CS, I think that's confidential source. Urdaneta explained that he was worried about the FinCEN reporting requirement and discussed ways to minimize the risk. Urdaneta suggested forming a new company with his wife as the beneficial owner. And that's the only paragraph. That's the only time the entire document that FinCEN is even mentioned. So FinCEN is not mentioned at all as being a part of this. Again, that doesn't mean they weren't involved in it. It's just not listed at all in the indictment. PDVSA, on the other hand, 64 times. And then a number of these people who are listed in the indictment, I believe, were Venezuelan and connected to PDVSA, but also, so the confidential source is the CS. It says in 2016, a confidential source approaches the HSI Miami office regarding 78 million in euros that they had received, originated from a loan contract with PDVSA. The CS was involved in a money laundering conspiracy and wanted to surrender the money and cooperate. HSI Miami thereafter began an undercover investigation, organized crime and drug enforcement task force, Operation Money Flight. The CS agreed to wear a recording device, and Operation Money Flight proceeded proactively with an initial focus on the defendants' efforts to launder a portion of the 78 million in euros the PDVSA funds in and through South Florida. 2 years and over 100 recordings later, Operation Money Flight revealed an international conspiracy to launder the PDVSA funds through Miami and several large-scale international third-party money laundering organizations. More specifically, the investigation revealed the use of Miami real estate and sophisticated false investment schemes to launder hundreds of millions of US dollars. Venezuelan corruption and Miami laundering. Venezuela has a foreign currency exchange system under which the government will exchange local currency, bolivars, at a fixed rate for US dollars. The fixed exchange rate has been well below the true economic rate by a substantial factor for years. For example, in 2014, the Venezuelan government fixed exchange rate was approximately 6 bolivars to $1 US. By contrast, the true economic exchange rate was approximately 60 bolivars to $1 US. The difference between the fixed rate and the true economic rate creates opportunity for fraud and abuse. For example, in 2014, an individual could exchange $10 million US dollars for 600 million bolivars at the true economic rate. Then, if that individual had access to the government fixed rate, it could convert the same 600 million bolivars into 100 million US dollars. Essentially, the two transactions, that person could buy 100 million US dollars for 10 million US dollars. Massive fraud and corruption is rampant throughout Venezuela's government-run foreign exchange system. Estimates of the fraud range as high as $20 billion a year, and reports indicate that corrupt government officials take kickbacks to authorize exchanges at the fixed rate. Embezzlement of Venezuela's dwindling foreign currency reserves is the fuel for these corrupt exchange schemes. PDVSA is Venezuela's primary source of income in foreign currency, namely US dollars and euros, and serves as the source of foreign currency used to fund corrupt foreign exchange embezzlement schemes. As for Venezuela in general, fraud and corruption is reportedly common at PDVSA. Venezuela's state of social, political, and economic crises in which multi-billion-dollar corrupt and criminal ecosystems thrive drives rivers of criminal proceeds through South Florida, which has become an international money laundering hub and a desirable destination for well-to-do foreign criminals and kleptocrats. Most of the defendants are sophisticated operators with respect to international banking system and are well aware of banks' general due diligence and anti-money laundering practices, including know your customer requirements. That's like the Patriot Act. I'm familiar with the KYC requirements. That's all under the Patriot Act. Patriot Act requires everyone to identify themselves when they open a bank account, that kind of thing. That was the thing. If you remember last year, everyone was freaking out because the content creators on X who were getting money for their content were going to have to give the third party A10X. It was AU, the number 10, and then X. They were going to have to give them their personal information, their home address, all that. And then it was revealed that A10X was owned by a Mossad front. It was basically owned. It was started by a bunch of Mossad guys connected to the same company that I've done a dig on before that was behind 9/11 and connected to all the security failures in 9/11. And so everyone freaked out. And then at the last minute, Elon switched companies and went to a totally different company that wasn't connected to Israel. Because everyone said Mossad's going to have our personal information if we go through with this. That was the KYC requirement as required by the Patriot Act. It says, importantly, for one party to wire funds to a third party, there must be some legitimate business justifications provided to the bank. For instance, a payment for the purchase of real estate or equipment. Moreover, a bank will ask for documents supporting the justification, which, depending on the transaction, can be difficult to manufacture. For instance, a bank may be able to verify whether a supposed real estate transaction took place. This verification poses a problem for money laundering transactions in which large sums of criminal proceeds must be moved around the financial system from one person to another as bribes, kickbacks, transfers, or exorbitant expenditures, for instance. Accordingly, false investments in fake securities are convenient justifications in that they are more difficult for a bank to investigate and verify. By way of example, one party might wire $30 million US dollars to a third party with the justification that the amount is a loan to the third party, supported by a $30 million US dollar promissory note due at some point in the future, which neither party actually intends to honor. For the bank, ascertaining the true intent of the parties and the fraudulent nature of the investigation is difficult. Then goes on to talk about the sophisticated false investment money laundering schemes. It says the conspiracy in this case began in December 2014 with a currency exchange scheme to embezzle approximately $600 million US dollars from PDVSA, obtained through bribery and fraud in the defendant's efforts to use the CS to launder a portion of the proceeds of that scheme. By May of 2015, the conspiracy had doubled in amount to $1.2 billion US dollars embezzled from PDVSA. The facts of the conspiracy set forth below are evidenced by electronic communications and documents, government records, financial records, records of phone conversations and in-person meetings, and CS statements. In 2014, Urdaneta and Convite approached the CS with an offer to sell $100 million US dollars at a favorable Bolivar exchange rate without the CS having to front the Bolivars. This is on page 6. I just want to see who. This is Carmela Urdaneta. Aquí is a Venezuelan national and former legal counsel to the Venezuelan Ministry of Oil and Mining. Something tells me if I look up this guy's fate, he probably was thrown in prison by Maduro. I'm just going to pull this up real quick. This episode's turning into a live dig. That's fine. All right, I'm going to let that search for a second while it's doing that. So I asked ChatGPT, was this guy arrested by Maduro? It says, no, he was not arrested by Maduro. He was charged and later surrendered to U.S. authorities in connection with a major corruption and money laundering scheme. Urdaneta, former legal counsel for Venezuela, was part of the 2018 Operation Money Flight. In August 2020, he surrendered to U.S. federal authorities, crossing from Venezuela through Colombia to Panama, and then appearing in Miami, where he faced the charges. In July 2021, he pled guilty to conspiracy to launder money in Miami, and in June 2022, a U.S. federal judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison for his role in the scheme. Okay, so he was never arrested by Maduro, but for whatever reason, he fled the country and surrendered to U.S. authorities. That's a little strange, but anyway, let's go back to the sanction document. I just want to read this last part where it says, embezzlement of Venezuela's dwindling foreign currency reserves is the fuel for these corruption schemes. Yeah, we already read that. Venezuela's, we already read that too. It says, accordingly, false investments, we already read that, money laundering conspiracy. Okay, so May of 2015, it gets up to $1.2 billion. The facts of the conspiracy set forth below are evidenced by electronic communications and documents, government records, financial records, and recordings of phone conversations and in-person meetings, the CS statements. So they approach him, they offer him this exchange rate. The CS agreed because the CS had clients in Venezuela to whom the CS could sell the US dollars. From previous business dealings, the CS knew Convite obtained US dollars from exchange contracts with PDVSA. The CS expected to receive a simple buyer-seller foreign exchange Forex contract to memorialize the agreement with Convite and Urdaneta. Over the course of the next month, January 2015, Convite, Urdaneta, and the CS continued to discuss and facilitate the supposed Forex transaction, often via BlackBerry Messenger chats, while Convite was present in the Southern District of Florida, according to U.S. travel and other records. During this time, Convite delayed providing the Forex contract to the CS, but did not overly concern the CS because the funds were coming from a regulated asset management firm, European Financial Institution 1. I assume that's that's probably Credit Suisse, which the CS could explain to the receiving bank. The CS instructed Convite to wire the funds from European Financial Institution 1 to an account belonging to a trust, of which the CS was ultimately the ultimate beneficiary. Convite agreed and informed the CS that the funds would arrive in euros and not US dollars. Okay, then it just goes on to explain some of the numbers they're moving around. Okay, so the bribery and embezzlement scheme revealed. The source of the PDVSA funds was a PDVSA foreign currency exchange scheme benefiting Eaton Global. The exchange scheme was disguised as a financing arrangement using the following three documents. First, there was a loan contract from 2014 between PDVSA and a Venezuelan shell company called Rantor Capital, in which Rantor agreed to loan 7.2 billion bolivars to PDVSA. Second, an assignment contract between Rantor and Eaton Global, in which Rantor assigns its rights as PDVSA's creditor under the loan contract to Eaton Global, in which it is contemplated that PDVSA is given the right to cancel the debt within 180 days by paying $600 million. And then third, a notice of assignment letter dated December 23, 2014, in which Eaton Global informs PDVSA of the assignment and suggests that PDVSA repay the 7.2 billion bolivar loan in the euro equivalent of $600 million US dollars. So in short, Eaton Global ended up with the right to pay PDVSA about 7.2 billion bolivars, which is worth about 35 million euros, and in exchange receive about 510 million euros, of which about 78.8 million euros was sent to the confidential informant. Yes, this is like it's almost like a currency like a devaluation scheme. I mean, that's kind of the stuff that Trump has talked about with China. So yeah, we don't need to read through the whole document, but that kind of just gives you a high level of what this was looking into. Okay. So the thing, it looks like the vehicle that they used to arrest Matthias Krull is about a money exchange fraud. Like they were exchanging currencies and they were inflating the value of the currency when it was exchanged a certain way. The essence of the lawsuit that Maduro is filing is about rigging oil contracts, like oil auctions. And my understanding is that basically they were like inflating the price, right? And so I believe the way they were doing it is that one company was paying a lot less to get it, and then they were inflating the cost of it and then passing on the cost to others. And I think it had something to do with oil rig, with auction rigging. So two different, I think, types of fraud, but it looks like the evidence that Maduro had kind of connected a lot of the dots, I think is my understanding, that brings in this Helsinki company, which is why the Swiss authorities raid Helsinki. So let's go back to the brief. So again, the Petro thing, that this is like the most damning one that I saw. Again, I want to get the full transcript so I can talk about this in depth. But after his meeting with President Trump, the head of state, Gustavo Petro, stated that the fight against drug trafficking must focus on the major financiers and international structures whose capital operates outside of Colombia. The president noted that he provided President Trump with information and names of these structures and reiterated the need to pursue them jointly through cooperation and international intelligence sharing. I'm wondering if that information he gave to Trump is the information that got him kicked out of the Egmont group, right? I wonder if that's how that all went down. So the other story that is tied to all this is the Swiss Nazi banking scandal. And so the Swiss says, this is from Reuters from yesterday, nearly 900 Nazi-linked accounts discovered at Credit Suisse, a U.S. lawmaker says. Bank's ties to SS more extensive than previously known, investigators says. Effort helped Nazis flee to Argentina, probe fines. Credit Suisse transferred funds from Jewish-held accounts to Nazi accounts, hearing told. And so they held a hearing in the Senate. I guess it was yesterday. It says a new probe of the Swiss bank Credit Suisse discovered 890 previously undisclosed accounts with potential Nazi links. A U.S. senator said on Tuesday, amid efforts to shine a light on what he said was the bank's hidden role in World War II crimes. And so the TLDR is that the guy who investigated all of this, I mean, Chuck Grassley is a senator who said all this to the press. The guy who was investigating this was named Neil Barofsky, okay? And so Neil Barofsky, I determined, was involved in a bunch of different investigations in the past. He was appointed in December 2008 to investigate the TARP payments. Remember the bank bailout, the $3 trillion bank bailout that was given to the banks after the financial crisis. And after his investigation, he testified in the Senate, and he's basically said, yeah, this is, the U.S. taxpayer is never going to get that money back. That money's gone, basically. The Troubled Assets Relief Program is what TARP stands for. And so he was the inspector general who was assigned to do that. He was also assigned to investigate the fraudulent, it was $55 billion in fraudulent credit swap, like the credit swap default. And related to the mortgage fraud. And I think that was when they were doing the subprime thing where they were packaging the subprime mortgages with the good mortgages and then selling them to each other. The banks were all selling these bad loans to one another and just making a ton of money every time they did it. I think he was the one who investigated that. He also investigated prior to those positions as inspector general. He prosecuted 50 of the Colombian mercenaries from the FARC cartel group. And he also successfully legislated or prosecuted the I think it was the biggest as a U.S. district as a U.S. prosecutor in New York, or I'm sorry, a deputy U.S. prosecutor in New York. He successfully legislated the largest fraud case in history. I think that's right. Let me go back to I have it written down here. Yes, successfully argued one of the largest accounting fraud cases in history. So simply put, Borowski understands the corruption of the banking and financial systems as well as anybody, and also has the unique experience of prosecuting Colombian cartel members on narcotics charges. So that takes us to this article. From the Buenos Aires Times. It says Venezuelans accused of looting PDVSA held accounts at Credit Suisse. More than 20 Venezuelans linked to corruption involving state energy firm PDVSA had assets of more than $273 million US dollars in 25 Credit Suisse accounts, a new investigation reveals. This article was from February 21st, 2022. So about 4 years ago. Swiss banking group Credit Suisse Group managed accounts for clients involved in human rights abuses, corruption, and drug trafficking, according to reports based on leaked data on more than 18,000 accounts that together held more than $100 billion US. An anonymous whistleblower gave the information to German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung, which shared the data with the Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project, OCCRP, a consortium of 47 media outlets, including La Nación, Infobae, Le Monde, The Guardian, and Miami Herald. After months of reviewing the data, Le Nación noted journalists identified that, quote, dozens of accounts belong to corrupt politicians, convicted criminals, criminals under investigation by the justice system, spies, dictators, and other shady characters, end quote. The data covers accounts open from the 1940s until well into the last decade, the New York Times wrote. The 1940s, that would imply like Nazis fleeing from Germany to Argentina, right? Which is what Borowski was hired to investigate. So among the individuals with accounts identified by the Swiss Secrets investigation are a number of Venezuelan clients who have been accused of looting state oil company PDVSA. It was determined that more than 20 Venezuelans linked to corruption schemes involving PDVSA had assets of more than $273 million in 25 Credit Suisse accounts and possibly much more, reported Venezuelan investigative journalism websites. Most of these accounts were opened between 2004 and 2015, they reported, which is important because in Maduro's PDVSA, pull that up. So let's just pull up. Since I have that handy, why not? Hopefully this document is the right one that has all of the... Wait, no, I don't want to open it with my browser. There we go. All right, so here's the actual PDF of... Now, this is from... I think this is when it gets dismissed. This is from March of 8th, 2019. So this is when the thing gets dismissed, right? But it has, in the past, it has like the background. And if I search for 2004, it doesn't come up. That's frustrating. Yeah, so this is just this document specifically is like them dismissing the case, but it just gives you like a summary of what is happening in the background. However, I have a very, very long thread with ChatGPT of me like conversing with it where I fed it all the different documents from Maduro's case. And in that, I went back to it and asked it to Yes. So I asked it right here. I said, did the lawsuit allege that the scheme began in 2004. Yes, the PDVSA U.S. litigation trust lawsuit filed in March 2018 specifically alleged that the corruption scheme it was challenging dated back to at least 2004. So the complaint in the PDVSA lawsuit asserts that two Venezuelan nationals, Francisco Murillo and Leonardo Baccaro, were involved in creating a company later known as Helsinki to exploit inside information and corrupt arrangements with PDVSA officials. And that was basically like a Helsinki was like an energy advisory and trading firm, right? It was like a consulting firm, basically. And it says they alleged to market intelligence to traders doing business with PDVSA. They allegedly established shell companies, bribed PDVSA officials, and provided confidential information to oil traders to rig bids and pricing, causing billions in losses. So basically, the oil traders were getting the bids at rock bottom prices, and then the oil traders, I think, were giving them kickbacks, right? Another news summary notes that the complaint described the ongoing scheme as cheating PDVSA since 2004. So again, these timelines are lining up perfectly. So now we go back to this case. Now Borowski is not named in this article, but it's pretty clear that I think that's who's providing this information. Whoever the whistleblower, the leaker is, I think is getting this information probably from Borowski. It says hundreds. So like down here, it was determined that more than 20 Venezuela. Oh, wait. I want to back up a little bit. So among the individuals with accounts identified by the Swiss secrets investigations are a number of Venezuelan clients who have been accused of looting state oil company PDVSA. Quote, it was determined that more than 20 Venezuelans linked to corruption schemes involving PDVSA had assets of more than 273 million. Yep, we read through that. Goes back to 2004, between 2004 and 2015. Quote, hundreds of millions of dollars flowed into the bank accounts at a time when Venezuela's public coffers were being emptied. Journalist Hugo Alcandra Mon wrote for local daily La Nacion. The bank kept the accounts of these Venezuelan clients open even when their involvement in corruption cases had been exposed in the media. According to another website, one of the Venezuelan officials identified with secret accounts at Credit Suisse is Nervis Villalobos, a former Venezuelan government official in the energy sector who has been accused of money laundering and receiving bribes from foreign companies in search of contracts with PDVSA. Credit Suisse issued a statement soon after the stories were published saying it strongly rejects the allegations and insinuations about the bank's purposed business practices. It said the information is based on partial, inaccurate, or selective information taken out of context, resulting in tedious interpretations of the bank's business conduct. See, I wonder if this is the reason that this guy got fired. Because what ends up happening, this article, again, is published in February 21st of 2022, right? The timeline that we understand, that I can go back and look at these Senate hearings, is that March of 2020, Sheldon Whitehouse gets approached by that Jewish human rights group, and they say, hey, we want you to investigate Credit Suisse. We think they have Nazi accounts from the 1940s that they're still holding on to. Please go investigate them. So Sheldon Whitehouse starts that investigation. Chuck Grassley jumps on as the co-chair. Okay. Credit Suisse probably gets wind of this, I would imagine. And so then they go out and they hire this lawyer who at that point is no longer working, in the Justice Department or for the U.S. government. Neil Borowski, he is in private practice. They hire him to basically be an ombudsman, meaning like they're like, hey, we want you to conduct an internal investigation for us. So you report to us what you find on these Nazi accounts, but we have access to everything. Like, figure out what's going on. We want to know, like, what do we have? Like, what do we have in our archives? So he starts the investigation. That's at the beginning of 2021. And then at the beginning of 2022, like a year later, I assume he's probably giving them updates on what he's finding. At some point, it sounds like it was January of 2022, they tell him to chill out. They're like, okay, we don't like what you're finding. You need to limit your scope, shrink this thing down. You're going too deep. We don't want to know about all this stuff, basically, right? We don't want this to come out in a report. My guess is that he then turns around and leaks this to these people. I think that's probably what ends up happening. And then in December of 2022, he gets fired. So they probably figure out that he's the one who's leaking this stuff to the press. And because again, like this stuff that he's leaking is not the Nazi stuff. Like it's not like it's not like, oh, this is Nazi stuff. Like, oh, this is all. But I'm just curious, and I'm speculating here. I could be wrong. But you know, he's leaking information that has nothing to do with what he is doing, right? But it does say here in this article that 18,000 accounts together had more than $100 billion. And these clients were involved in human rights abuses, corruption, and drug trafficking. That to me says cartel, former Nazi guys, and probably like intelligence officials. It also says that these people included, where was it? Yeah, so after months of review, journalists identified dozens of accounts belonging to corrupt politicians, convicted criminals, criminals under investigation by the justice system, spies, dictators, and other shady characters. I think that fits the Nazi narrative, right? I mean, if Adolf Hitler did actually make it to South America, then he would be a dictator, right? I mean, so spies, convicted criminals, other shady characters, I think that kind of collectively satisfies all that. It says down here that, let's see, Credit Suisse does not tolerate or support tax evasion, money laundering, or other illegal activities, has strict control mechanisms in place, and reviews and develops its policies on an ongoing basis. Former bank employees cited in the investigation said that while the bank handles due diligence on average clients, quote, when it comes to high net worth accounts, the bosses encourage everyone to look the other way. So Borowski gets fired in December 2022. And then at that point, he has sent a letter to, I think some point in 2022, he sends a letter to Chuck Grassley and Sheldon Whitehouse and says, hey, I'm working on this and just want to let you know. They then basically demand to get information on it. And then when they find out that he's been fired, they then send a letter to Credit Suisse, which eventually goes to UBS, because I think it's March of 2023, about 4 months after he gets fired. UBS is forced to purchase Credit Suisse. UBS is their main competitor in Switzerland, the other Swiss bank, because because Credit Suisse is financially insolvent at that point. They are facing insolvency. And my speculation is that the reason they were facing insolvency is because, as we discussed in the past, all their assets are being seized by the DOJ. And the reason all their assets are being seized by the DOJ is because of Operation Money Flight, the thing we were just reading about. Like I was reading through that long indictment about Matthias Krull and the money exchanges, the currency exchange, like that stuff. They're seizing assets because all the money they're parking their money in Credit Suisse. And so the DOJ is seizing that money and through asset forfeiture, the same asset forfeiture policy that, that the airlines were talking about, people, them seizing people's cash when they were getting on planes. It's kind of like the same idea. So now they've stopped doing that. They've stopped doing the asset forfeiture because random individuals were getting their cash taken while they're getting on planes. To me, that's kind of like the deep state undercutting the efforts of white hats to come after them, because they're like, oh, look at this really weird loophole where innocent Americans are getting their money taken while they're getting on planes. So, and because that was all being done purportedly under Operation Money Flight, with the allegation being, oh, these people are taking the money out of the country or whatever. Okay, so we then go back to this article, which I thought was interesting. This is a similar article, published at the same time, but it is written by this other, the organization of, it was cited in Organized Crime and Corruption Reporting Project. That was the one that was cited in the other article we just read. That other article also mentioned Nervous, right? Nervis Villalobos, right? He was the energy official who was doing a lot of this stuff. Here he is right here. So this OCCRP article, which is published on February 20th, the day before it's published. The other one was published, and it shows you a picture of Roberto Ricon. He's one of these PDVSA officials. And the other one is this guy, Nervis Villalobos or Villalobos. And it says, it's been years since Nervis Villalobos has felt the sweltering heat of his hometown close to the lake shore, but he can't go back. He is facing charges of corruption and money laundering in Spain after neighboring Andorra, as well as in the U.S. and Venezuela. So he's facing charges in Venezuela, which have both filed extradition requests. As a key middleman in Venezuela's oil industry, Villalobos allegedly received bribes from U.S. companies to help them secure lucrative energy contracts with the national oil company. Spanish prosecutors say Villalobos acted as a frontman for Rafael Ramirez, a previous PDVSA president, a former energy minister, and an ally of the late Venezuelan leader, Hugo Chavez. Spanish court documents say Villalobos' position made him effectively the second most powerful person in Venezuela's Ministry of Energy, where he worked in various senior roles from 2001 until 2006. Even after Villalobos left to become a contractor, he walked around PDVSA as if he were a senior executive, said a Spanish judicial source who spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not allowed to discuss the case. Quote, he would drown your business if you did not pay him. To survive, you had to ally yourself with Nervis Villalobos. Matthias Krull, a banker convicted in the U.S. for laundering PDVSA money, told Spanish prosecutors in a document obtained by OCCRP. By 2008, Villalobos had started to gain an international reputation for dirty dealings. An 11-page due diligence report from that year found by police and Credit Suisse's files outlined multiple allegations of corruption against him, including an alleged 2.7 million euro bribe linked to a hydroelectricity project that he split with Ramirez. But even this did not stop Credit Suisse from working with him. In 2009, Credit Suisse's Monaco branch opened an account for Villalobos, Spanish prosecutors say. Soon after that, another Swiss bank dropped him as a customer due to corruption concerns, so he simply moved the money into his Credit Suisse account instead. So you had another Swiss bank say, hey, we got some red flags here in what you're doing. We're dropping you as a client. He's like, all right, cool, give me my money back. And then goes and puts it in Credit Suisse. Then in 2011, says even the personal information Villalobos provided was problematic. When reporters looked up the Caracas address he gave for the account, they found it did not exist. Then in 2011, Credit Suisse's Switzerland operation opened another bank account for him. A text message sent that September shows that Venezuelan oil contractor Abraham Sharia Bastidas intervened on his behalf after the bank had questions about the source of the money Villalobos wanted to move to Switzerland. Bastidas would later plead guilty to bribing Venezuelan officials, including Villalobos, for PDVSA contracts. So these guys are lying for one another to banks that are calling with questions about the accounts, including Credit Suisse. The institution has not accepted the stick. Sierra wrote to Villalobos on BlackBerry Messenger, according to court documents, using Venezuelan slang for large amounts of money. They're asking me for invoices and purchase orders. I already submitted them. I hope it is resolved tomorrow. The message did not name Credit Suisse or the Swiss bank Sharia was referring to, but the leaked Swiss secrets banking data show that Credit Suisse opened an account for Villalobos just 5 days later. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to come back and do another 10 or 15 minutes. Everyone just bear with me here. Let's listen to Soft Disclosure.
I don't say this lightly. This lotion changes people.
My knuckles would actually start to crack. Started using the Soft Disclosure lotion, and I am very impressed. Even within just a few days, I've noticed a tremendous difference.
That's not a script. That's what happens when something actually works.
It puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Yeah, that line keeps coming up. Because when you don't use it, your skin starts acting up.
Every single ingredient in Soft Disclosure is intentionally chosen. There's no filler ingredients. It is not like this BS product where you know, they have a bunch of ingredients. Every ingredient listed is for a purpose.
Over 60 5-star reviews for the lotion alone. Not influencers, not actors, just people whose skin finally shut up. Soft Disclosure Lotion. Once you try it, you'll understand why people won't stop talking about it. Visit softdisclosure.com and use code Badlands and get 10% off.
All right, so let's wrap this up. We have let's see. So back to this OCCRP article. So we have Matthias Krull listed in here. We have indictments that show this Villalobos guy working with these banks and not with Credit Suisse, and Credit Suisse basically asking some questions, but not very hard questions. And then other officials in PDVSA lying on his behalf to get the banks off his back. And then they themselves are turned around and arrested later as part of this whole money laundering scheme. Here's a picture of like one of the oil pumps, I think, that they were citing as like the thing that they were either spending money on or making money off of. So it says, in total, reporters identified 16 Credit Suisse accounts containing at least 162 million Swiss francs belonging to 7 people who were convicted or accused of being involved in the PDVSA kickback scheme. Jose Ricon is the son of Roberto Ricon, who admitted bribing PDVSA officials alongside Sharia in a U.S. court in 2016. Spanish police arrested Ricon Bravo in 2018 on suspicions he laundered PDVSA money, confiscated jewelry, watches, and sports cars from him and his family, and seizing a 400-hectare estate near Madrid with several houses and a large paddock for horses. So it says Ricon Bravo has not yet been charged in the case. However, he has publicly, this is the son, he has yet publicly denied being involved in his father's corrupt affairs. In 2019, he told El Confidencial, a Spanish newspaper, that his expensive accessory came from work from years of saving. Here's a picture of him right here. But the Credit Suisse data shows Ricon Bravo and his father held 4 joint accounts worth at least 93 million Swiss francs that have not been named in any court documents before now. 3 of the accounts reached their maximum holdings barely 2 weeks before Ricon Bravo's father was arrested in December 2015. So some of these guys are getting arrested like before Trump's even in office. This Ricon guy, Roberto Ricon, gets arrested. He pleads guilty in 2016. You have Fernando Ardilla pleads guilty in 2017. Abraham Shaira pleads guilty in 2016. This Nervis Villalobos is indicted in 2018. Yeah, and again, like the thing that I find interesting is that the overlapping timelines here, where Maduro is filing lawsuits against Glencore and Trafigura, these commodity asset trading companies, and the oil companies for engaging in this embezzlement and money laundering. And they say this was happening starting in 2004 at least, if not sooner. And then at the same time, Borowski, or this, whoever this whistleblower is from Credit Suisse, I assume it's Borowski, he's saying that this is all starting in 2004 as well. And you got to think, if they're looting hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars from the coffers of Venezuela, that would explain why Venezuela is poor by the time Maduro becomes president, right? Then you compound that with the fact that they crashed the oil price in 2014, which I think was probably done in part at least to bring Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela to, under pressure. Venezuela, of course, I think was the most affected by that. That all starts to add up. I mean, all of this seems like moves and counter moves between earnest actors trying to get justice for things that were done to their country. Because a lot of this stuff probably predates formal sovereign alliance affiliations, maybe not. And then these bad actors in the banking industry, the commodity asset industry, trading industry, and the oil industry. So this is again from this OCCRP document. It says, article, it says documents from a separate U.S. case against them, which was dismissed in 2019. This is referring specifically to the Maduro lawsuit, which again, the plaintiff in that is not Maduro. The plaintiff is PDVSA. But it says documents from a separate U.S. case against them, which was dismissed in 2019 as the judge deemed the court did not have jurisdiction, showed Baccara and Murillo are accused of bribing several PDVSA officials to help them clone a company server. They then allegedly used the inside information they gleaned to cash in on sales to global commodity traders like Trafigura, Vitol, and Glencore. So that is specifically, like right there, this OCCRP investigation, which is done over the course of months, if not, I think at least a year. They said they were looking at this stuff. This is connecting the three different tracks that we have. That would be the Maduro lawsuit, number one, right? Operation Money Flight, number two, that's Matthias Krull. And then number three would be this. I think it's this Borowski investigation, which was the Nazi accounts, right? Because that name Nervis via Lobos comes up in the investigation. So again, I'm speculating a little bit, but it looks like these things are all connected. Not maybe directly, but they all involve Credit Suisse. That certainly connects all of them, right? And they certainly are connected through PDVSA. So while the Nazi guys may not be involved in PDVSA, they certainly were involved in Credit Suisse, and then Credit Suisse was holding money for a lot of different cartels and bad actors and criminals. And then, of course, Credit Suisse collapses, UBS takes them over, and now they're being investigated by Chuck Grassley in the U.S. Senate. I mean, who knows what that actually means, like if that's going to come to anything. I think these Senate investigations are a little underwhelming whenever they actually produce stuff. However, this Borowski guy, he is required to deliver, or he's expected to deliver a full report of everything he's come up with. He's been investigating this since 2001. He's going to deliver a full public report, which is going to be given to the Senate committee sometime in 2006. I'm sorry, sometime in 2026. So sometime this year, he's going to give Chuck Grassley this report, and I assume Chuck Grassley is going to make it public. And I'm sure the report's going to be given to all these people who have been tracking this stuff. So anyway, it says, like the last part of this OCCRP article says, corruption and crisis. No one knows how much money was looted from Venezuela's national oil company. Estimates range from $11 billion to $300 billion from 2002 to 2014 alone, after Chavez came into power and when oil prices were booming. But the effects of the economic meltdown have been catastrophic. Food price inflation reached a staggering 1,700% in 2022. The World Food Program said, while the poverty rate hit 94% last year. A lot of that, by the way, was driven by sanctions. They sanctioned it, saying that, you couldn't do business with the Maduro regime. As Venezuela sank into a humanitarian crisis, oil money that should have paid for schools and hospitals was being funneled into offshore accounts. In the last 18 years, PDVSA went from bad to worse, from implausible to the absurd, said Cesar Meta Garcia, a Venezuelan lawyer who focuses on the energy industry. The effects of PDVSA's corruption is evident in the dilapidated ghost towns on the eastern shore of Lake Maracaibo, where streets bustling with oil workers and their families have been replaced by graveyards and abandoned cars. All around the area, a constant reminder of the company's decline leaks steadily into the water. So yeah, this is, again, like, I think the central narrative is trying to say this is all being, like, at the center of all this corruption is Maduro, but that doesn't quite track to reality because Maduro files the lawsuit and hands over this trove of evidence to both the U.S. government and the Swiss government, which then is going to get passed on to Europol, which, Spain is arresting some of these guys. I've seen a number of other countries arrest people that were connected to PDVSA. So again, it just doesn't follow the narrative. Like, Maduro files the lawsuit. He can't be at the center of it unless he's ratting on himself, right? And that would explain why we have this weird continuity of government thing happening with Delcy Rodriguez after Maduro gets arrested by Trump and brought back to the United States. By the way, Maduro is supposed to appear in court, I think, on March 17th. We'll see what he has to say. Like, when that case starts up, it will be interesting to see what discovery comes to, because if the allegations against him are that he was engaging in corruption and he was the one stealing all this money, he's going to defend himself by basically being like, oh yeah, well, here's all the data that shows who actually was stealing all this money. And it was all these financial institutions that are, the biggest banks in the world. And that's before we even get the Borofsky report that's supposed to come out, as well as whatever the hell Gustavo Petro gave to Trump, because Gustavo Petro is out there saying, I have names of individuals and institutions that we need to go after who are involved in the cartels, who are laundering the money and stealing the money. They're not stealing money. They're just laundering money from the drug trade. And we need to work together to go after him, because the next step, according to Gustavo Petro, that he said to Trump was that we need to go after the international institutions and the financial institutions that operate outside of Colombia. And he said those are centered in Madrid, Dubai, Miami, among other places. So, yeah, to me, it's like these Bolivarians, whether it's Maduro and the Venezuelans or Gustavo Petro and the Colombians, all seem to be gung-ho to go after these bankers, and they seem to have Trump's ear. So we'll see what happens. All right, so I think we'll kind of land it there for today. There's some pretty cool stuff happening with Turkey that I guess we'll talk about on Friday. But Turkey is meeting with all the different Middle Eastern countries. Looks like they just signed a military framework with Egypt. Erdogan was in Saudi Arabia yesterday. So there's going to be a lot to talk about with Turkey and some major moves being made there. I also see some misinformation. I do want to share the misinformation. So Megatron, who I think this is one of those accounts that doesn't post links. He doesn't post headlines. He doesn't post anything like that. He just posts like his own write-up, which is normally like 2 sentences, and a picture that's related to, but he doesn't source anything. He doesn't do any of that. He says, breaking, Saudi Arabia gives Iran green light to target U.S. military bases on its territory. According to Israeli Channel 12, Saudi Arabia expects Iran to strike only U.S. targets in the Gulf, a Saudi source tells Israeli Channel 12. The same source adds that in the case of Iran striking only American military targets in the Gulf, Riyadh will remain neutral and not act against Tehran. I asked Grok if this was true, and Grok says, no, the claim in that X post is not true. It's unsubstantiated information, likely originated from the post itself or similar unverified sources circulating on social media. There's no evidence from Israeli Channel 12 or any credible outlet reporting a Saudi source stating that Saudi Arabia gave Iran permission to target U.S. bases on its territory while remaining neutral. So yeah, this is, again, I like evidence that we have a coordinated campaign, I think, to vilify MBS, drive a wedge between him and Donald Trump, vilify Donald Trump, obviously, always, and basically turn against these like that will lead to the golden age. And who's behind these campaigns, we'll probably find out, I imagine. But yeah, and this is that. I wasn't sharing my screen, but this is that. So if you see this post from Megatron, this is a lie. This is not at all true, not verified at least. All right, let's see if we have any rants or anything. Hit the thumbs up, guys. This was a bonus episode, so not as well it didn't have the agenda or curriculum that I normally have. But just wanted to get this information out there because, it takes a while to go through this stuff on stream, and I didn't want to dedicate the show on Friday to it and then skip over all this Middle East stuff that's happening and other stuff. There's Russia stuff and Europe stuff happening too. So let's see. Looks like we got a rant from ClareCat 367, $17. Ghost, thank you very much for all you do and for today's bonus episode. Truly appreciate your incredible knowledge and insight. Many thanks and blessings. Well, thank you, ClareCat. Appreciate you as well. Let me just check and make sure if we have any Badlands boosts. If you are listening to this on replay, you can go to badlandsmedia.tv/boost and check out and leave a rant. It's like leaving a rant. It's like leaving a rant, but anytime. And also there's no like 20% or 30%, whatever they take from Rumble. Aside from a small processing fee, I think they just give the whole thing to us. So we have one from Eleanor 2000. Hey, Eleanor, February 3rd. I think I may have read this yesterday. I can't remember, but if not, I will read it again happily. The unremitting geopolitical events will never leave us with a Gordon drought. My ongoing contribution to the tremendous work you do to explain these events and history to us, Gordon. Well, thank you, Eleanor. I appreciate your support. That's a very, very generous rant or boost. And thank you again for all the support. And thanks to everyone for being here. Share the show, hit the thumbs up. I am going to start, I mentioned this yesterday. I'm going to start, I was hoping to get this out today, but it probably won't be till tomorrow now. But I'm going to start doing, I think, like a geopolitical roundup of just random stories on my Substack and kind of get the Substack going. I was just talking to Matt on Breaking History about consolidating all this information on this like financial stuff with Venezuela and Colombia into like a Substack. It's like write up. So I'll probably publish that on the Badlands Substack, but I'll publish it on my Substack as well. So anyway, subscribe to my Substack. I will put that in the comments. And then, we will see y'all tomorrow on The Choice with Ash. I think we're doing season 2, episode 4. I think it's episode 4 now. All right. So with that said, appreciate everyone being here, and we will see you on Friday.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.